Folks, I think we've had our share of really bad movies. So today, as a special treat, I'm going to review one of the greatest movies ever made. Citizen Kane. It takes a great deal to make a movie. And in 1964, Vic Savage, under the pseudonym of A.J. Nelson, decided to do just that. Of course, he didn't have a script, or proper actors, or a reasonable director, but he decided he didn't need any of that. And he created one of the worst movies ever made, a testament to human stupidity and pain. Today we're looking at that film, the 1964 classic, The Creeping Terror!
This man's name is Martin Gordon. The lovely girl beside him is Brett, his bride of 2 wonderful weeks. It's late August. They're returning from their honeymoon to their home in quiet, peaceful Angel County, California. Martin's Uncle Ben is sheriff of Angel County, and Martin is his senior deputy. Martin has high hopes of succeeding his uncle when Ben retires. But for now, Martin has only the thoughts, emotions, and pride of a very happy newly married young man. Brett is his, and he feels no man could ask for more.
Well, doesn't that look all nice and cozy? But things are about to take a deadly turn. For as they're driving home, a spaceship lands, and from it comes something horrible, unthinkable, and definitely creeping. Earlier, the ship landing had been regarded as a plane crash by the forest ranger, and he'd been sent by the sheriff to investigate. He hasn't been heard from. So, meeting up with the sheriff, Martin and Brett head out to investigate.
They looked at the rocket in utter amazement. A puzzled Ben finally asked Martin what he made of the craft.
It's no airplane.
Could be one of our missiles.
Or one of theirs.
You could be right, honey. Don't think we have anything this big.
This hat belongs to Jeff Peters.
The sheriff does the one thing you should always do when you encounter a mysterious alien spacecraft. Go right inside without any regard for your safety.
I think I hear him moving inside. Maybe he's hurt.
Ben, please don't. Ben.
Well, that went well, didn't it? Oh, don't worry. There's much more stupidity to come.
Car 1, calling in. Car 1, calling in.
Within the hour, Martin's unusual call for assistance was answered by a special unit led by a Colonel James Caldwell. The sergeant reported seeing an amazingly large creature in the aft section of the strange craft. He further reported that it was secured by a kind of metal harness, but that the creature could still move around somewhat, and for that reason they had not gotten too close to it. There was no trace of either Ben or Jack. The colonel ordered continuous guard duty around the spaceship and decided to set up a temporary military headquarters at the sheriff's office in town. By the next day, Colonel Caldwell had the situation well in hand. He had called Washington and received his orders from the highest possible authority. He was to maintain tight security and to await the arrival of a Dr. Bradford, who had been on assignment at the Jodrell Bank Radio Observatory in England. Upon arrival, Bradford was to take complete charge of the operation. He was the world's leading authority on space emissions and had worked out a series of systems that might lead to communication with other forms of life when, as, and if they were contacted. Martin was outraged by the government's intellectual approach to a monster that had already killed and caused the disappearance of his two close friends. Caldwell tended to agree with him, but stated he had to follow his orders.
Meanwhile, the first monster is happily going out exploring Earth, finding new things, looking at new sights, eating people.
In a remote section of the county, the first of a series of tragedies took place. Tragedies that would have been avoided had the public been warned.
Oh, marvelous, marvelous. What a cinematic tour de force. Not only are people too stupid to run away, but this woman refuses to leave and leaves her child alone.
Within 48 hours, Dr. Bradford had closely examined the creature and the spaceship and reached a number of conclusions. He was sure the creature had come from beyond our solar system because it adapted to our environment so quickly, and no planet or dead star near us has conditions similar to the Earth. Of special interest to him was the hull of the ship. It was composed of an alloy unlike anything human science had ever encountered. The doctor had run a number of tests on the metal, but its molecular structure remained a mystery. Because there was no food on board, Bradford presumed the creature had been in a state of suspended animation, particularly because it had survived the trials of re-entry and impact without apparent harm. So far, he had no success in communicating with it, but he had not yet exhausted all possibilities. On a more subjective basis, he had the curious feeling that the creature did not want to communicate with him. Such a confession on the part of this eminent scientist made Martin feel quite apprehensive.
Something tells me this highly intelligent scientist has about as much smarts as a high school physics teacher.
You stay there. Stay calm.
In response to a multiple missing persons report, Martin and Barney searched the countryside for the group of picnickers. The only trace they found of them was the remains of a guitar one of them carried. This wholesale disappearance of a large group of people, coupled with earlier missing persons reports, led Martin to only one conclusion. There must be another monster, and it was on the loose.
And so the acting sheriff proves to be more intelligent than anyone else in the movie. Meanwhile, the monster has had his biggest feast yet, attacking a dance and finally the local lovers' lane, full of cars, in the middle of the day, where not a single person actually tries to drive away. These people are stupider than dirt.
It was almost an hour before Caldwell learned of the monster's devastating new attack. Colonel Caldwell wasted no time ordering his men into action. It was at this point that Bradford interceded. He demanded that the monster be taken alive at all costs. The colonel's protests about the dead and missing made no impression on Bradford. Caldwell conceded to the point of assuring Bradford that they would not destroy the monster if they could avoid it. The sergeant, a shaken man, returned babbling about what had happened. Caldwell, realizing the full danger of the situation, decided he had only one means left to stop the monster: grenades. Now Bradford made a drastic move. Acting on his superior authority, he forbade Caldwell to destroy the creature. The colonel, more concerned with saving human lives than advancing science, told Bradford to go to hell.
Finding a mechanical apparatus in the carcass of the monster, Dr. Bradford's synapses finally begin to fire, and he rushes off against time.
The explosion loosened the harness on the monster and allowed it to escape. Martin tried to help the doctor, but there was no time. Bradford told Martin what he had just confirmed, that these monsters were highly specialized test animals. They were, in fact, mobile laboratories that consumed human beings in order to analyze them chemically, undoubtedly to detect weaknesses in the human species. He told Martin that the information fed into a computer in the spacecraft. Further, he added, now that both monsters were dead, the computer would activate a transmitter to send the results into outer space. Martin knew what he had to do. As Martin entered the spaceship, he heard the transmitter generator kick on. The super tough alloys of the spacecraft were not even dented by Martin's hammer.
Martin, you know you have a gun, right? With bullets in it?
As the transmitter stopped, Martin felt sick. Evidently, all the information had been transmitted. On Martin's return, he confessed his failure. He slowly asked Bradford what was in store for humanity. Bradford was pessimistic, but implied that maybe all was not lost. After all, he told them, the vastness of the universe is incredible. If these monsters had come from its outer limits, their home might even no longer exist. Or if they do come again, perhaps man will have advanced enough to cope with them and those who made them. Only God knows for sure, were Bradford's last words to anyone on this earth.
And so our movie ends. What a wonderfully evil ending. Not only are mankind too stupid to run away from a giant monster that moves slower than a Roomba, but they've actually managed to prove that there is more intelligent life out there, and it's going to come to eat them all. So that was The Creeping Terror. How was it? Absolutely awful. The acting, such as we hear, is terrible. The dialogue, such as we hear again, is awful. The sound design is so terrible that Mr. Savage had to actually dub over almost everything just to tell what the hell is going on. The monster is incredibly stupid, and despite the fact that it slowly eats people, almost nobody thinks about running away. On the other hand, this film is a wonderful testament to the ultimate doom of mankind. Humans are afraid of the unknown, but are too stupid to run away from it. Anything that possibly comes to Earth can destroy us all, and even our most brilliant scientists are helpless in the face of the inevitable death from the stars. Behind the scenes was even worse. Mr. Savage got funding for the film by promising bit parts to a large number of people in exchange for a few $100s here, a few $1,000s there. Not only did he repay these people by having almost all of them be monster food, but just before the movie was premiered, he was sued for fraud and disappeared. This movie is a dark, depressing mess of chaos, fear, and despair. So I'm going to give it 1/2 evil mark out of 5. So remember, folks, there's things out there, and they all want you dead. And that's why Citizen Kane is the greatest movie ever made. I'm some Canadian critic, and I'll see you at the video store.